Hello, and welcome back to the Pigeon Tarot podcast. On this episode, I wanted to focus on men, but not probably in the way that you think. I met this reader once, and while I'm not sure that they did their reading specifically under this alias, they called themselves Men Are Dumb. And I wondered why you would alienate that part of your audience. Unless you're specifically trying to appeal to those women who are lost in love, hating men, and honestly, probably preying on that type, right? So I would just like to say, I have just as many men as women who ask for readings, and the men tend to be very, very open to introspective exploration, despite what some of the stereotypes may be. So in this episode, I wanted to focus just on questions from men, not to create separation, but to show that tarot really has no boundaries except for those that you might put on them. I try to be very inclusive in my tarot practice, but even I can miss the mark sometimes. I just keep trying to evolve and find ways to connect with anyone and everyone. So let's pull a card first for the overall theme of our episode. All right, the first card we have is the Nine of Swords. I think everyone is pretty familiar with the imagery of this card. The card that has you surrounded with anxiety, those thoughts keeping you up at night, and I think everyone can understand that feeling. The thing about this card is that anxiety is normally centered around your own thoughts. Things are not as bad as you think in your mind, and this is very much a card of overthinking. You have to have some trust that things will work out, that these anxieties will eventually lift. So let's try to put those swords down and pick up these cards. Our first question comes from Bar Hopper, and our Nine of Swords card is actually rather suiting for their situation. They have problems. Bar Hopper has problems where he finds himself getting overly caught up in very negative subject matter. The problem he has is separating himself from that negativity when they see it, hear it, or read about it. The negative events online or difficulties that other people are going through at the time. So he tends to internalize these struggles and keeps it with him. This is someone who seems very empathetic, but unable to create a good boundary between him and all of this negative mind space. So he's asking how he can do this. How can he deal with all the negativity that surrounds him, even though indirectly affecting him? How can he continue being involved with, his online communities without taking all the negative energy in? I'm not going to have a set meaning again for these three cards, as each question is varied. So we'll just pull three. Four of Swords reversed, the World reversed, the Nine of Wands reversed. And sometimes we can see reverse cards as those very internal processes, and I feel like maybe that's where we're headed with this reading. With the Four of Swords reverse, Bar Hopper is putting unnecessary mental strain on himself. He needs to figure out how he can separate himself and create a space where he feels safe, where these negative thoughts don't permeate. The World reverse, sometimes seen as another card of anxiety. Bar Hopper is searching for something, I think. It has to do with finding a way to keep from focusing on something deeper that he may be dealing with. So he may be using, other people's problems, putting those at the front of his mind and putting his own problems kind of at the back of his mind. Sometimes when you turn your attention to other people's problems, you avoid dealing with your own, right? And then we have the Nine of Pentacles. And I think that shows Bar Hopper needs to actually create maybe some more physical separation, right? Put the computer away. Don't spend all your time on the internet. Get outside and get into the world. He needs to start pulling himself out of that online world and explore more his physical environment. He can't keep himself from getting wrapped up in these stories, then he needs to get away from them. Make some stories for himself. Find positivity in the world around him. Find the place where he can disconnect and recover, just get away from the computer. Unfortunately, the algorithms that we rely on so much to get our media across to the right audience can work in a negative way. So when you're taking a deep dive into the negative side of the internet, that's all that you're going to see until you start making, some more active efforts to seek out positive posts and positive inspirational posts, maybe even, and change that atmosphere you have created for yourself. That's kind of a big thing that tarot readers will play on, is those algorithms. If you want people who are suffering in love and you put out content about people suffering in love, well, you're going to attract the right audience there, right? We could go on about that, but we won't in this episode. Next question I have is from Robe. Robe is having trouble moving on and forgiving himself for the past. Robe is no stranger to how family trauma can affect you and the relationships you create in your life in the future. He worked very hard to support his family, who had their own problems, so a lot of it fell on Robe to keep things together, and he just got used to being in that position where he did everything for everyone else, even, sacrificing his own needs to help others. Unfortunately, sometimes those who are so willing to give themselves attract those who are going to take advantage of that kind of person, right? And so Robe got into what we may call a very toxic relationship, pushed themselves to the limit for this girl until finally he had nothing more to give. Robe eventually broke free of this relationship and the other toxic relationships in his life, but finally free, he's just left hating everything about who he is. Robe wants to know how he can just forgive himself for being put in that situation and never standing up for his own needs. We have the Five of Pentacles, the Three of Swords reversed, and the Six of Cups. I think I like the message here. Okay, we have this Five of Pentacles, and Robe is going through it, right? Going through this hardship, we would say, in his own way. But unfortunately, he doesn't have much support outside of himself to help weather this storm. So he needs to be willing to kind of push through, these more painful memories he's holding on to. Things will eventually get better. Without support, he's going to have to be that support system for himself, unfortunately. And that's where some difficulties can come in. The Three of Swords reverse. And how I read that Three of Swords reverse, it's kind of about a lesson being learned here. And he has learned this lesson. We can't sit there and regret. We have to move forward with the knowledge that we have gained from our situation. So Robe shouldn't just sit there with the regret of the past events. All he can do is not make the same mistakes again. Focus on his healing and his growth. Again, he will, things will start to get better for him as time moves on. Finally, that Six of Cups reverse. With that card, we can hang on to the past in very unhealthy ways. And he is hanging on to the past and what he couldn't change. It's time for forgiveness, very simply. Don't carry that past with you anymore. You are a different person. You have learned. You are moving forward in your life. That past is not some giant unmovable obstacle. Yes, it's unchangeable, but it's done with. And you have already moved away from it. So don't let it drag you back in with these thoughts. And don't be afraid, to look for some outside support. With this question, I think about how we often perceived men in the past, these big unemotional walls of beings who are just meant to sacrifice everything for their family. But no matter your gender, your mental health is very important. And these worries and this strain, it affects everyone regardless, So don't hide from your emotions. Don't force yourself into a position that you think you have to take as a detriment to yourself. And most of all, don't be afraid, right, to get some help when no one else is there to support you. It's okay to struggle. It's okay to ask for help. You don't have to be this strong person all the time. Here we have our next question. Bonfire is what we'll call them. They have been in an online relationship for quite some time. Talks of marriage, exchange of pictures, sexting even. This connection for Bonfire is very real. He's put all his energy into this person that he has never met. He has grown very attached, and he wants a future with them. But through all of this, his online partner refuses to take things any further. And, when it comes to an online relationship, I can't help but think of catfish, right? Which, again, it doesn't matter your gender. You can be catfished by anyone, right? You're looking for love, and this person seems to be offering you love. Whether they're real or not, you want to believe it, right? So now Bonfire sees that he's kind of stuck, and he just needs to let this person go so that he can find real love. He just needs some reassurance that this is the right move to make for him to move on. Yes, I think so. All right, we have the King of Pentacles reversed, the Hermit, the Six of Wands. All right, the King of Pentacles reverse. We can kind of see that in a couple of different ways. So this could be focused on the physical connection that Bonfire is looking for. They're not going to get it if that's all they're focused on, right? So they're ready to build something, but it's hard when he can't even meet this person that he wants to be with. One thing that we do have to wonder sometimes with these online relationships, though, is the money aspect. And Bonfire didn't mention it, but I do wonder if maybe he has been giving money to this online partner. And that would make me worry that she may be actually taking advantage of this situation, using him specifically when she needs a little bit of funding. Either way, it's not a good card for building a relationship upon. Our priorities are going to be in the wrong place and not focused on the relationship itself. The Hermit card, that's a card of self-focus. And I think that's kind of the sign that we need for Bonfire. Like, this is time for you to do what's best for you, Bonfire. Go on your solo journey, find yourself, find what it is that you want, that you need. If you can't get it from this partner, it's time to figure out how to attain it for yourself. Take this time to be on your own so that you can take care of yourself. Move on. And finally, we have that Six of Wands. And normally we see that Six of Wands as a card of victory. Either way, I see it as this is the push that's necessary for Bonfire to move on towards something better for himself. A victory won for Bonfire in the end. So he's making this move in order to find what it is that he is seeking. It's a good move for him to make. It's no easy task to let go of someone that you have fallen in love with. whether they are real or not. But in this case, things are no longer progressing, and sometimes love, it can only keep a relationship together for so long. You need somebody who is present, and that's more important than you may realize. Find that person who is present in your life, who shows up when you need them, who is a part of your life when it is important. And let's go for our last question. It comes from JD. And I chose this one because it's sort of an interesting dilemma that focuses on the separation between man and woman and trying to fit into certain categories, which becomes more difficult as we move on and things start to become more blended, and the definitions of those categories, man, woman, is not so significant, right? Now, JD is a trans male, and they have spent a lot of time focusing on the differences between the sexes. And while they feel like in every way that they act like a man, they also feel like there is a key piece that is missing. They feel as though that like the introspective overthinking side of themselves is a female trait, and that because they are that way, they won't ever be considered a man. But here I am trying to say that men are very introspective. Men spend an incredible amount of time overthinking, just as anyone else would. So that is not a trait specifically, wrapped towards a female. Again, JD just assumes that men cannot be introspective or overthink. And this causes confusion when he is dealing with those thoughts. It makes him feel less like he could be considered a male. So JD is just really trying to figure out where he fits in. We don't need these definitive categories, Two of Wands, Ace of Wands, the Fool reversed. You know what I see here right away? And it's all about just doing your own thing. Nothing else matters. Just do your own thing. JD, it doesn't matter about trying to define your gender or really define where you fit in some arbitrary description. It is all about making your own way in life, however that is, the individual that you are. The Two of Wands is focused on the plans that you'll have for yourself to set out in the world and focus on your own individuality. Enjoy your time in the place that you are in, and focus less on those thoughts that are kind of keeping you trapped, that you are overly focused on. The Ace of Wands, again, I feel like that's a card about just being who you are. Inspire yourself. You don't need to worry about male, female, which one you exhibit more. Just be you. Be you. It's okay. Make your way. Light your own way. Look, that wand often we can see as a torch, right? There are plenty of people in the world that really don't concern themselves with such a rigid idea of gender, right? And I feel like that becomes more common with especially the younger generation moving up. It's like not that necessary. And then finally we have the Fool reverse. And I think of somebody who just needs to have a bit more life experience for themselves to kind of continue to figure out who they are. And I think that's really what is happening here, is that JD still doesn't really know who they are, and they will find it. They will find that. Instead of focusing on what you are, JD needs to explore the idea of their own self and get in tune with that inner person. Don't worry so much about the traits. Just be open to exploration without barriers, right? That's all anyone needs, is just that exploration to figure out who you are and what you want. instead of being stuck someplace where you're going to be unhappy because you're trying to fit into a certain lane. No matter what gender you may identify with, more or less, you are you. That sun shining in the back of the Fool card is just your authentic self, not defined by anyone or anything, and that is what is most important. And if I never said any of these questions came from men, you wouldn't even know, and you probably wouldn't even care, because we're just all individual people who are authentic to ourselves, and that's all anyone should really care about. I think that will bring us to the end of this episode, where the subject really didn't matter, and hopefully we all got the benefit from what the cards had to say. Don't forget to check out me on other social medias, and I hope that you will come and listen again for our next podcast. Thank you.